of council present. A couple are with us via Zoom. Our Deputy Mayor Robbie Shepley and Councillor Rodney Hammond are on via Zoom, so I'll need help. If anybody sees their hands, somebody just let me know. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of the First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on this land from time immemorial. If you are able, please stand for our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We'll go to Director Malandrukalo for closed meeting reports from December 5th, 18th, and 18th.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you, I can report that council moved into closed session on December 5, 2023 at 4:30 p.m. to discuss technical or commercial information supplied in confidence and a position or plan to be applied to negotiations to be carried on or behalf of the municipality pursuant to and as permitted by sections 239, 2I, J, and K of the Municipal Act 2001. I can also report that council moved into closed session on December 18, 2023 at 4:30 p.m. as permitted to do so by the Municipal Act 2001 as amended by way of section 239 2C to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. I can also report that council moved into closed session on December 18th, 2023 at 5 p.m. to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees pursuant to section 239, 3.1B of the Municipal Act 2001, and that is the extent of my report.
Any declarations of conflicts of interest from members of council this evening? Seeing none, needing a mover and a seconder that the published agenda for December 18th be adopted as amended to allow for two notices of motion, one from Councillor Allard and one from Councillor Mady. Mover and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Needing a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the regular council meeting held December 4th be adopted as circulated. Councillor Garing, Councillor Mady. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. 7.2 special council meeting minutes for November 27th for our 2024 budget walkthrough, that the minutes of the special council meeting held November 27th be adopted as circulated. Councillor McGuire-Blaze, Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We will move on to public presentations. And first, we will have our CAO suite introduce our delegate.
Bondi. So council, you'll see with us, we have Tim Burney, CEO of IRCA, with us today. So a couple months ago, Mr. Burney was here and he was talking about when the Conservation Act, they removed non-mandatory services, right, in terms of what municipalities were responsible for. And at that time, we supported moving forward and still contributing to the non-mandatory services. as long as the other municipalities were also participating. Since that time, Windsor is not participating in certain elements. So I did ask Mr. Burney to return, to kind of explain the differences. Your administration has met with Mr. Burney and Ms. McMullen. We still support moving forward with this, but I also want you to hear it from Mr. Burney.
Thank you, Your Worship, council and staff. It's been quite a whirlwind of activity meeting with councils throughout the region. We've now met with all councils basically unanimously are supporting 7 of the non-mandatory programs within the funding envelope that was presented to you. We started with Essex and now we're hopefully wrapping it up with Essex. Unfortunately, the city is working through the financial envelope as we were proposing, with the city of Windsor being the largest contributing member municipality. That has a significant impact. The 2 program areas that the municipality is not participating within the financial envelope are for at-risk land acquisition and ag stewardship and outreach. Now, the city is still contributing to a reserve fund that the city is holding. It's an undefined process for us at the moment, how we would approach the city and address that. I guess more will unfold as we move through time with that. The city withdrew support of ag stewardship and suggested only funding it to a level of 5% of the request. That left that program area basically unsupported. Administration's recommendation to the full authority board for the 2024 budget was to pause that program area for 2024 and review with member municipalities, farm groups, and others who may be affected by that programming, and realign and reimagine the Conservation Authority's involvement in that initiative. And we will come back in 2025 and make recommendations to council at that point in time. I should also quantify for the municipality that Source Protection Authority approved a raft of policies the other evening. Moving forward, we're going to have to review those policies that were approved by the Source Protection Authority. The Essex Region Conservation Authority is the implementing agency for the Source Protection Authority. Source water protection is a mandatory service as identified by the province. Policies formulated by the Source Protection Authority addressing source water protection are mandatory in nature. We're reviewing the impact of that, and we'll be coming back with a recommendation in 2025. I am leaning to an interpretation that then states implementing those policies are mandatory and would be a leviable process. So the reimagined program addressing 75% of our watershed area, primarily in agricultural production, but affected by other construction activities, large fill activities, and other disturbance of soil activities that would all fall in that umbrella of concern or consideration. So there'd be more to come on that. The agreement that was first put forward to your administration has been modified to pause the agricultural stewardship for 2024. With the city not funding the at-risk land, the remaining municipalities are still in a position to, on an as agreed to basis, fund the Conservation Authority for at-risk property. The problem that we have with is if a one-member municipality pulls out and it's based on MCVA, modified current evaluated assessment, then what calculation do you use? So the agreement that was recirculated still has that same number that we had in the original agreement. And that number is still calculated based on as if we were using the modified assessment calculation. But we're not showing it in the 2024 budget. And we will respond to Town of Essex. If the Town of Essex still wishes to contribute, we're happy to accept those funds and put that fund in a reserve account specific for at-risk land acquisition. Thank you, Your Worship.
Mr. Bernie, any questions from members of council to our delegate here this evening? Councillor Meady.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for coming out again tonight, Mr. Bernie. It's still unbelievable that that those programs are pulled out, and how important the Ag Stewardship Program is, and how much of our water it actually affects is pretty remarkable. The land acquisition, being in Essex and being home to like the new Kelso Trail, only shows that how important that fund also is. So to have these two important pieces kind of pulled out is still disturbing. I am happy to hear that word pause, and I do look forward to having that program re-implemented in some way, shape, or form.
Was that any suggestion to write to the city of Windsor and let them know that we are not happy? Just an idea. Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, just a quick question. I'm just trying to understand this completely. So the city of Windsor pulled out, and we're going to make up the difference for them. Is that am I understanding that correctly? Just for everybody out there too. So in case there's some misunderstandings on that, I just want to make sure we understand that completely.
Deputy Mayor Shepley, we will have Mr. Bernie answer that.
Through you, Your Worship, there is no intent on having anyone make up any differences. However, if county municipalities, Pelee Island is already informed that they wish to contribute. A couple of the others, we're having some discussions with them, right? But there's not an additional load or an additional financial burden put on any other member municipality. But if municipalities wish to proceed with the amounts originally identified in the agreement, that's how we could proceed. But the structure of the 2024 budget right now, moving ahead, has identified a pause for ag stewardship, and has not identified that the land acquisition would be incorporated within the 2024 budget. However, if municipalities wish to, they could still submit the original request, and it would be set up. It has to be set up into a different reserve fund now for at-risk land, because we don't have the city of Windsor's portion available to us or under our control. So we would have to get back to the city to see how we're going to access the reserve fund that apparently is in our name but being held by the city.
From members of council, we do have a motion to receive the delegation, and then we do have another motion. So right now I'll look for a motion to receive the delegation of Mr. Bernie, Councillor McGuire-Blaise, Councillor Allard. Any questions to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor. We do have another motion there, that bylaw 2294 being a bylaw to enter into a cost apportioning agreement dated December 18th between the Town of Essex and Essex Region Conservation Authority be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on December 18th. Moved by Councillor Verbeek, seconded by Councillor Meady. Any questions to this motion? Oh, okay, Councillor Hannan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering, is there a number attached to that commitment?
Fitch?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Hammond. So the amount of the optional land acquisition is 24,300. This was included in the recently adopted 2024 budget, and there are sufficient funds in the Conservation Cost Center to fund this.
You, Mayor Bondi. In the agreement that I provided, that's being provided to you today that was revised, it actually allows for that contribution. So if you vote to enter into the agreement, you're actually also voting to provide that $24,321.
Hands the motion on the table. Any further questions? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Mr. Burney, while you're here, I do want to talk, council members of getting comments from farmers, and I think Councillor Verbeek wants to maybe discuss a letter of support from the town of Essex on the elimination of the agricultural technician position. Councillor Verbeek?
Sure, through you, Madam Chair, I'm hoping that council will support. I'll make a motion that we do send a letter to the city in that effect. And member municipalities.
Supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions to that motion? We'll work with your office and to get some wording. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you for coming out, and we will keep you posted on our next delegation because they're talking about flooding. So we'll send you a note too on that while you're here. If you want to stay, you can. Okay, so moving on to public.
Thank you very much, Worship Council.
Thank you.
And from me personally, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yes, Merry Christmas to you in your office too. We're moving on to our public delegations, 8.2, flooding issues on Masaccio. So we have Tina and Andrew. Just move back to the podium and you get 10 minutes to speak to council, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers.
Good evening. I'm Tina Krinsick, and this is my husband, Andrew Krinsick, and we are residents on Masaccio. And we are here on behalf of our community with profound concern regarding the persistent flooding issues that continue to afflict our neighborhood. The alarming intermingling of stormwater with sanitary water is particularly distressed, resulting in severe consequences for our beloved community. The most recent incident transpired on August 24th and 25th, 2023. Despite enduring repeated flooding incidents, we've been consistently told that these are 1 in 100-year storms. However, since 2008, we have experienced over 5 such storms, rendering the increasing frequency of these events difficult for us to accept. The financial and emotional toll on our community has reached an unacceptable level, necessitating an urgent and lasting solution to this ongoing problem. Mixing stormwater with sanitary water transcends mere inconvenience. It is a matter of public safety. As our representatives of the town, we implore you to take immediate action to address this pressing matter and provide a comprehensive solution that not only prevents further flooding, but also safeguards the integrity of our sanitary systems. Additionally, in our initial letter, we proposed the construction of a stormwater retaining pond at the end of our street to possibly alleviate stress on the Turkey Creek ditch. This pond could have served a dual purpose as a decorative lake for citizens to enjoy, addressing our flooding issues while enhancing the beauty of our community. Unfortunately, we received an email from Shelley Brown stating that our petition was deemed invalid based on specific criteria outlined in Regulation 58606. According to Section 9.2 of this regulation, a petition must be signed by at least 2/3 of the owners representing at least 1/2 of the value of the lots liable to be specially charged for the work. Despite having 22 homeowners in favor of the proposal, the remaining 27 properties, though not built, are being considered in the evaluation, leading to the invalidation of our petition. We bring the discrepancy in this response to your attention as the 27 properties in question remain unbuilt, and the criteria outlined do not consider this crucial factor. Please reconsider our proposal in light of this information and recognize the validity of our community's plea for assistance. For the expansion of Masaccio Drive, we recently came across proposed plans in MLS indicating the existence of a pond south of currently 8 undeveloped lots on Masaccio, parallel to the existing creek. We seek clarification on whether this is merely a creek widening or intended to address our current flooding issue. Several questions have arisen regarding this proposal. Who will be responsible for building the pond? What and whose water will be going into the pond? Will the water from existing homes be redirected to the pond? Is the design intended to hold water permanently? What provisions will be in place for maintenance? Will there be a levee to prevent overflow? What is the expected capacity of the pond? Will this be a pump system? Considering the limited progress made since the 2017 community meeting, where representatives raised concerns from Essex, Amherstburg, and Urca, we are troubled by the need for infrastructure improvements. At the time, it was Chris Nepsey representing Essex, Tim Burney from Urca, and unfortunately, we do not recall the name of the Amherstburg representative. Moreover, we seek clarity on a possible solution proposed to residents in 2017, the installation of backwater valves. Residents, including ourselves, who have implemented these valves, continue to experience flooding with sewage. This situation is deeply concerning and demands immediate attention as it undermines the efficacy of proposed solutions. Despite expressions of regretting the construction of houses from Urca, and I quote what was said by Urca, "If we knew then what we know now, we would not allow the houses to be built. There has been no substantial change to infrastructure, and our street is expanding with new builds. While we support community growth, addressing the existing flooding issue is imperative before further expansion. Consequently, we propose a moratorium on new building in our area to allow our street and the surrounding community the chance to have the ongoing flooding crisis resolved. Complicating matters is the ambiguity surrounding responsibility for stormwater and sanitary management. Amherstburg is responsible for one, while Essex is responsible for the other. Attempts to seek assistance from both areas have proven challenging, leaving us in a state of uncertainty. We understand that there is an ongoing investigation into the current pipelines, which could take an extended period of time. We seek information on the timeline for rectifying the existing lagoon or constructing a new one, as our community has patiently waited for over a decade. We are aware that the town has already started an environmental process to expand its Colchester sewage treatment plant and is working with Amherstburg on a proposal for a new sewage plant in McGregor. Additionally, we seek clarification on whether the proposed lagoon build would include our area and how the equitable inclusion of our community is ensured. However, the issue persists, and we believe a more immediate and targeted approach is required. Furthermore, the water flow from the farmer's field north of Masaccio and the water from all the residents on either side of the farm contributes to the high ditches on Walker Road affecting the area. This underscores the interconnected nature of the problem and the need for a comprehensive solution. In addition, we have seen insurance companies making significant cuts to the amounts of insurance money paid to our citizens in the wake of these floods. This further compounds the hardships our residents face and underlies the urgency of promptly addressing the issue. We want to emphasize our deep love and attachment to our community and the concerns about potential new homes being built on our street. This is a daunting prospect, as it would undoubtedly contribute to the water system's overload, exacerbating our problems. We must first address the existing issues before we can allow such development. Should circumstances dictate and a resolution proves elusive, we want to express our willingness to consider legal recourse as a last resort. We intend to maintain transparency and a cooperative spirit throughout this process, and we hope that it will not come to the point of legal intervention. In conclusion, we urgently seek your attention to these pressing matters and request a transparent and inclusive dialogue to address our flooding concerns promptly. We appreciate your commitment to the well-being of our community and look forward to your guidance on resolving these issues effectively. Thank you.
There's a couple minutes left in case you wanted to say something.
I'm good.
Okay.
Pretty much
All right.
destroyed it, so.
Okay. I want to thank you both for organizing this and getting your community out. Questions, comments from members of council? Councilor McGuire, please.
Thank you through the chair. So we've heard of the petition. I don't think I've seen the petition, but we heard about the petition. I've heard about the issue. Can I hear from Director Gerard on what the problem is with this particular area?
Thank you through the chair. Yeah, so there's kind of a lot to unpack there. There's a lot of information for sure. I think our delegate definitely hit it on the head. There is a bit of a difficulty in terms of Amherstburg Essex relationship and who owns and maintains that infrastructure. So it is true that the town does maintain, operate the stormwater system, while the sanitary sewer system is owned, operated, and maintained by the town of Amherstburg. So, I mean, without knowing all of the individual issues in each individual home, it sounds like they're having a combination of issues between stormwater and sanitary. There are measures that can be taken within private property for sure that were mentioned tonight, such as backwater valves and things like that. So those measures should absolutely be taken by residents. So anybody that doesn't have a backwater valve should seek to look to install those types of infrastructure. There are subsidies available through the town of Amherstburg to install a backwater valve subsidy or a backwater valve as well. To kind of speak a little bit to the history, so this subdivision, this whole as phase 1 and 2 were approved in the early 2000s. I believe it was 2002. So that this subdivision was under old stormwater management guidelines, but was still designed to release and to store up to the 100-year event. Obviously, those guidelines have changed substantially, namely in 2018 when the new stormwater management guidelines that have been adopted by all of the region were adopted. So that subdivision, much like a lot of the town of Essex prior to 2018, don't meet the standard of the day. With that being said, we do monitor our systems. We do conduct maintenance on them. We could certainly look at the phase 1 stormwater management plan and look to see what types of improvements we could make. However, trying to tie the stormwater management plan from phase 1 into phase 2 at this point is very difficult. We actually managed to have the stormwater management plan updated by the developer for the phase 2 lands because of a clause within their development agreement. So they satisfied that clause. They did make the phase 2 lands and design them to meet the stormwater management guidelines of the day. So we do have assurance that the phase 2 lands will not negatively impact the phase 1 lands from a stormwater management perspective. We've ensured that the road itself can never overtop with water in a 100-year event, and even in the stress test event, which is 142% of the 100-year event, that water can never overtop from the phase 2 lands into the phase 1 lands and further impact your lands, and it will be released directly into the Sucker Creek. So we do have assurance from both our peer reviewer and the consulting engineer from the developer. Again, I can certainly commit tonight to looking at the stormwater management plan and the infrastructure in that area to see if there's other improvements that can be made and covered within our operating budget. If there's anything beyond that can be covered by our operating budget, it's something that we could come to council with as a report.
Squire Blaze, then I have Councillor Verbeek.
Thank you for that explanation, Kevin. So I think when we go to move this, I would like to add, when we receive their delegation, that we ask council or administration to come back with a report on that. I think that's a really good idea. I did want to follow up with Director Chadwick. Do we know when phase 2 is supposed to begin? Are there any plans for phase 2 to start anytime soon?
For you, Mayor Bondi, to Councillor McGuire Blaze. So the developer could start at any time. There are some technical requirements, technically speaking. The stormwater management design has just been approved, as Director Gerard indicated. That has triggered an amendment to something called the development agreement. That development agreement needs just a minor change and will come back to council for execution. That can take a few weeks. we leave that in the developer's court to start that process. We have everything in place on our end. If the developer chooses to come back to council in the next couple of months, say, it would be then that the developer could move to begin construction of the infrastructure. So everything's in place. The lots have been registered. The development is essentially a final approved plan of subdivision. The county does not need to be involved in this stage. It's just amending the development agreement. The ball being in their court, they could start at any time.
Just one more thing, maybe you could let the residents know a little bit of the storm, the retention pond that is proposed, so that way that might ease some minds and let you know what's going on with that, if that's okay.
Mayor Bondi once more. So the location of the stormwater management pond?
So I don't have all of the information here in front of me, but in essence, what the system is that it will the water will drain into a stormwater management pond, which is located behind the lots just adjacent to the Sucker Creek. That pond will store up to the 100-year event plus the urban stress test, and it will actually pump the water into the Sucker Creek by pump station. So that system will be completely isolated from the Sucker Creek. So the Sucker Creek would not be able to back up into subdivision lands.
And Deputy Mayor Shepley.
To you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor McGuire Blaze. You covered a lot of the comments I was driving towards. And do we, Director Gerard, do we need to make an official, shall we give official direction for you to move forward with this report with a timeline or, attached to it? Because sometimes, that we're constantly directing you to get us reports, and then we kind of, like these residents, I can tell you, since my time on, I understand that they've been dealing with this issue. It's significantly different than those of us that have had horrible basement floodings repeatedly. Because you and I both, we all know how horrible those are, but when you're adding the sanitary piece to that, it's just not healthy. And to encounter it over and over, right? I did have a few sit downs with our past CAO about this pond that I see the communities even talking about now, the potential, and we've always heard we can't. Well, now we're going to get this retaining pond. But if we're pushing the water into the creek that is overfull every major rain, and it's pushing now, when that's full, when that's not flowing, it's flooding out all the properties, all the homes on the back of the trailer park. And they suffer significantly because that creek is full and it's not flowing. And I'm not saying I from what I've been able to witness in my short term on council, it's not our side. We're doing what we need to do, but we need to take a step further and see that the creek is being dredged or cleaned all the way out past us, because it fills and it stays filled during water events on our side of the road, right? And so then it's pushing up into all these properties. I'm not saying that that's what's contributing to the sanitary piece and all, but I'm glad that you're going to delve deeper into this now and find out about the sanitary piece. But we also know that the water is not in the creek, it just gets high and it stays there, and then it takes days before it'll go down. And it's like I say, it's not just these residents up into the park. They're losing their properties into it because so there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle that we have to look into. We've been hearing about it for several years, and I'm hoping that this council is ready to take this bull by the horns and really address this, because there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle that really do need to be addressed. Would us sending a letter or asking our IRCA residents or IRCA representatives to take this to the next meeting and see what can be done on the other side of Walker Road with the creek to keep it moving as another piece of the puzzle? And this retention pond, is there an opportunity for it to become like a Sadler's Pond, like a park type of area? And even if the builder does have to use one of the new building lots, because I heard there wasn't enough property there to do a decent size park area around a pond, but I mean, there's 27 properties. Maybe they'd be willing to use one. I'm just looking for all kinds of solutions because that's why these people are here. So we're all in the room. I'm just asking what kind of things we could look at to make the change that's needed.
We'll go to Deputy Mayor Shepley and then administration can answer. And I do want to I did have a meeting with IRCA, so I want to talk about IRCA and Sucker Creek and a game plan for that. Deputy Mayor Shepley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. Great questions Councillor McGuire Blaze asked. She had got a lot of answers to the questions I was going to ask, but a couple of things I noticed through the proponents' discussion. They talked about the stormwater and the sewer having troubles with both and having installed backwater valves. I mean, if that's the case, are these backwater valves not being checked? Are they not working properly? And is it typical that would they have two, one for storm, one for sewer? I'm just looking for clarification on that. And then also would the phase one, just so in case I missed it, will phase one drain into this retention pond or just phase two? And if it's possible, could phase one, if it isn't draining, would phase one possibly be able to drain into it? Thank you.
Yes, through the chair. So your first question, so the check valves on each service. So typically these are fairly newer homes. So in terms of home building, they're fairly newer homes. So most of them would have basements and they would have a sump pump. So that sump pump would have a check valve on it. That's what protects the flow of stormwater running back into the home. There are certainly other ways that homes can flood. Through infiltrating through cracks, coming up through the floors. There's many ways that a home can flood. But in terms of the direct service, that check valve is usually on the sump pump or right in that area. And then the backwater valve is on the sanitary itself. So to answer your question on whether or not they're working, it is recommended that they are checked annually by a plumber. They do fail. There's a rubber gasket within them as well that can dry rot and crack, which can cause leakage and for the valve to not work. So that is something that's often not known by homeowners as well, is that they do have to be checked by a plumber annually. And then you had a question about the retention pond for phase two lands. So the phase two lands, the retention pond will only service the phase two lands. It will not service the phase one lands. In order you have to imagine that there's already an outlet for phase one that sheds water into the Sucker Creek. So to change the flow of water, we would have to change the sewers and how the orientation of the sewers would be to make that watershed back to the pond. With that being said, it's a substantial outlet that is for the phase one land. So it's a very large chamber-like outlet that goes out to the Sucker Creek that manages and stores a lot of the water. So a pond isn't necessarily always the only alternative. You have to store a certain amount of water within that development to meet the stormwater guidelines and the release rates that are usually set by the engineers or consultants and IRCA. But that water can also be stored underground. It can be stored within manholes, catch basins, different things like that as well. So stormwater management ponds are not always the only alternative. They're typically the lowest cost alternative, though. So it's just something that I wanted to note as well. I know the frustration, and I know the frustration with basement flooding. I personally flooded in the August flooding event as well. So I know what it's like to sustain damage to your home. I know that everybody is tired of hearing, well, it's a 100-year event and we can't plan for a 100-year event. And I completely understand. However, if the town were to try and plan for these 100-year events to the level that no one would ever flood, we would never be able to sustain a municipality with a normal tax rate, et cetera, et cetera. It'd be millions, tens of millions of dollars. Municipalities are not required to build infrastructure to convey 100-year storms, but to protect residents as best as they can from those events. I understand the frustration with hearing that over and repeatedly, but there really isn't much we can do in these events, and no matter what, in a 100-year event, homes will flood, and it is the best way to protect yourself is to protect your own property. The town is here to help in any way possible. So if you have questions about how to protect yourself, if you want somebody to come out and take a look at your home, we are absolutely there to help work through those details. We can't conduct the work for you, but we can certainly help provide advice to residents if they're flooding.
Second, Andrew. Did you want to say anything? Okay, Counselor Hammond. Go ahead, Counselor Hammond, and then Deputy Mayor, if you want to speak one more time.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. One thing that sticks out in the delegate's presentation was where she mentioned that where she was told if we knew then what we know now, we would never let that subdivision, it kind of makes me wonder, why didn't we know then? And all these recommendations that are set out by different, authorities and stuff like that. I think we can all assume that they're a little out of whack and that we need to start increasing our threshold when it comes to stormwater management, and maybe start doing a little more overemphasizing on some of the things that we should be looking after, especially for these new developments, because quite frankly, you don't know until it happens, right? And you're just building these buildings and hoping that that they're gonna all go as planned, and then something happens and, oh yeah, we didn't notice that. So I think some overindulgence is called for, especially for our future. Thank you.
Okay, the Deputy Mayor says he doesn't need to talk again. I just want to let everybody know that after the floods happened and quite widespread throughout our municipality, we held coffee open houses in all of our wards, and Councillor Verbeek and the Deputy Mayor and we were in the McGregor Community Center. And then after that, I did have a coffee chat with a representative from IRCA about Sucker Creek in particular, because there's storm sewers, then there's municipal drains, and then there's natural water courses. So to clean out a natural water course, it's complicated. It's not like we can just go dredge it like a municipal water drain. So I think we could have a couple motions here tonight. One being that we direct our CAO to meet with IRCA and also all the other municipalities that feed into Sucker Creek. So if we're looking at cleaning out Sucker Creek, we have to get Amherstburg, LaSalle, and even a section of Kingsville drains into Sucker Creek. So it would be 4 municipalities. So we could have one motion that we have our CAO start discussions with IRCA in those 4 municipalities to start getting a plan to clean out Sucker Creek, because I heard that what's the point in pushing all the water to Sucker Creek if it can't flow out of Sucker Creek? So that's one thing. I don't see that happening in 2024 though, because everything takes a while. So it's going to take a while for all of us to meet with our municipality. Like, we couldn't pull it off by 2024 budget. So I think it's going to be something that we look at for 2025. So that's one action item. And then another motion, I think Councilor McGuire-Blaise, you had some ideas about directing Director Gerard for a report. So Councilor Verbeek, if you want to provide direction that our CAO meet with IRCA and the 4 municipalities to start a plan for cleaning out Sucker Creek. Director Gerard.
Clarification. I think what you're referring to is having a discussion to look at River Canard, not the Sucker Creek. The Sucker Creek drain is maintained by the town.
No, we have a problem and I want to fix it. Okay. Councilor Verbeek.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, that indeed would be a motion that I would make, that we ask our CAO and possibly our mayor to have some discussions with our neighboring communities and IRCA about looking at improvements to the River Canard.
I need a seconder for that. Sorry. Comment to the motion? Oh,
No, I was just seconding it. I didn't see you get a second.
oh, okay. Okay, sorry. All in favor? And that is carried. Counselor McGuire Blaze, did you have, do you want to receive the delegation and make a motion for direction to our?
So I'd like to receive the delegation and I'd like to ask our administration to complete a report on this specific area on all of the creeks and the watershed for our storm water management and see if there's any improvements that can be made. Do we know how long that might take for that kind of a report before I make the motion?
I just want to clarify. So are we looking specifically at phase one Masaccio, or are you asking for us to evaluate the watershed?
Thank you. Both? What's the difference, Keith?
So through the chair, so if it's a stormwater management review, there's a certain amount of detail that we can do internally to review the stormwater management for phase one lands. Any detailed review engineering type of work will require funds to hire a third-party consultant. If we were to look at the watershed in its entirety, that would require a significant amount of funding to look at the watersheds and all the drains that come into River Canard. So if it's specific to Masaccio, we can conduct a review internally. We can provide those options and the findings. And council could decide from there whether or not they wanted to dedicate funds to assess that system further or look at the watershed. Okay.
Yes. So the last one that you said, that's the one that I want to put in the motion. Director Malinger, go.
Counselor Verbeek, I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay, Director Malandrucolo is going to read the motion.
Recorded as receive the delegation and direct administration to complete a report regarding a stormwater management review for phase one of Masaccio Drive.
Comments to the motion, Council. Counselor Verbeek.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor. Director Gerard, I'm not 100% clear on what all you're going to investigate and what report you're going to bring back to us. But I feel like what's really driving these residents is that there's 27 properties that are going to be built on in no time. Like the shovels are ready to go in the ground. Anybody that was down there on the 23rd or the 24th saw that the water was completely over. You couldn't drive on the road. The water was up over their front yards to their doors. I was there. I didn't drive in it though. And so their concern is that we're about to let this developer put 27 more homes up. And I get that they're assuring us that it's not going to affect them, but I'm just hoping that your report can also assure us and possibly give us some solutions, put some solutions forward. I'm sure there's going to be a dollar tag attached, especially hearing that a pond is the cheapest way to go. But it has to come back with some kind of solutions.
Verbeek, in theory, could we not approve the development agreement until this report is done? Like Director Gerard, Director Chadwick, the development agreement has to come back to council for the 27 lots. Could we not approve that until we're satisfied? Councillor Guerin?
Believe that Director Gerard said phase two would not affect phase one. Phase one's issue is its own issue without anything being even put on in phase two development or not in phase two development. So I think that's what we need to guarantee from. If we move forward to development, will any home building make it any worse for these residents than it is already?
Just to provide a bit of caution to council, any decision you make under the Planning Act is subject to appeal through the Ontario Land Tribunal. Any decision to defer or to deny needs to have the justification to do so. And as Councillor Guerin pointed out, any amendment to the development agreement would strictly be for construction of homes in phase two, as per the approved stormwater management design and so forth.
Counselor Meady.
Madam Chair. The original petition that went through and that was not allowed because of the extra 27 homes that are going to be built. If phase one and phase two are different entities and phase two is not going to have any impact on phase one, why was that petition not allowed?
First of all, anytime residents get together and send us something, to me, that's allowed. But it wasn't, we have a legal policy on how petitions are accepted by council. But I did get it and I did send it to all of council. It's just not an accepted formal petition. But it's still a petition from the residents. Director Malandrucolo?
I can't confirm or deny right now that that's exactly why the petition was denied. The deputy clerk did review it, went through it with me and said that, and we decided that it wasn't valid at the time. And I can go back and come back to you and report as to why it wasn't valid at the time. That's what we're hearing today, but I don't remember specifically if that's why it wasn't valid.
What the actual petition, what was he asking the actual petition? But I think we're here talking about, it's not, it wasn't accepted, but we're kind of talking about it anyways, right? I just want to make sure the petition wasn't any different than we're talking about tonight, was it?
To Tina or Andrew, can you tell us the title, like what the petition, the gist of the petition?
Thank you. So the petition was to try and take a couple lots and just say, hey, can we start draining backwards? And it was just a thought. Obviously, I'm not a civil engineer or anything like that. It was just like, hey, can you give up a couple lots and just drain backwards? So we're not putting any more pressure on the creek or anything like that. It was an informal, I guess would be the best way, an informal suggestion or just a thought that we just had. Continuing on, there are a couple residents here we do have from Ducharme as well. So I want them to be recognized as well. You know, we're not the only ones. Ducharme is getting it. Unfortunately, my wife and I were canvassing and, you know, there's a couple here that were kind enough to join us as well. So I do want Ducharme recognized in all this as well off of 13. The other thing was now we're talking about all the stormwater going into this new drain, or sorry, this new pond on behind those 8 lots. Where's their sanitary going to go though? Is it going to follow our sanitary on one, which is the issue? And I guess fourthly, to Councillor Gerard, in our home, I could speak for maybe about 4 homes that I know of. We have 4 homes that I could guarantee have backwater preventers. All 4 got sanitary. I have 4 sump pumps in my home. So that's roughly about 12,000 gallons an hour that I was pumping out. And I couldn't keep up with it. So
we're going to vote on the stormwater and then I'll ask a question to Kevin Gerard about sanitary. I think we'll break it up. Okay, we have the motion on the table. It was made by Councillor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councillor Verbeek. Everybody knows the motion. All in favor? Okay, Director Gerard, we did give money and we are in the process of the EA with Amherstburg. Approximately how long is that going to take? And do we have any other suggestions for our residents in terms of protecting themselves from sanitary other than backflow valves?
Through the chair, so the town of Amherstburg is managing the environmental assessment for the expansion to the McGregor Lagoons. The RFP was put out, we received proposals, and we're just in the evaluation stage of that now. So the town of Essex and Amherstburg are getting together to evaluate those proposals to make a decision on the successful engineer that will conduct that EA. The timeline for that is still probably at 18 months before an actual study is completed, which will benefit the whole of McGregor, both on the Amherstburg side and on the Essex side. And then again, the best way to protect yourself from sanitary backup is a backflow preventer. So a sanitary backflow preventer. So again, I would offer the suggestion that those backflow preventers be checked as well by a certified plumber before, you know, to ensure that they're still functioning as they're designed.
So we do have meetings every little bit with the town of Amherstburg. I think we'll bring this forward in our joint meeting that we have with them. And is there any further direction from council? Okay, we will double back with you when we get this report. We'll let you know. Is there any way you can leave your speaking notes here? I can copy them and scan them to council. Just leave them with Diane there at the back, or email them to me. Okay. So our delegations have been received. We're going to move to reports. Thank you all for coming out. Oh, one quick thing. If you live on Masaccio and you got sanitary, can you raise your hand? Okay. Did you get storm as well? Okay. And then you folks are from Ducharme. Okay. Thank you very much for coming out. Okay, we're going to move on to reports from administration. 10.1, Town of Essex Emergency Website Updates. Verbal presentation by Mark Tutora. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awful. Yeah. Manager of Strategic Communications. Okay, we'll go to CAO Suite first. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. With the 3 major weather incidents in 2023, the town received a lot of questions from our residents, right? Who do I contact? What do I do? How can I help myself? So based on that, our manager of strategic communication has been doing some research and trying to enhance our websites and our messaging we do for our residents. I have seen what Mark has produced and I thought it was fantastic. So I thought it was really good that he can display this to council and our residents tonight, and any feedback is appreciated, but I think it's a minor step, but it's a step in the right direction to help our residents.
And thank you, Council. So in recent years, the town of Essex has experienced extreme weather events which have impacted the community, including the winter storm that occurred in February 2023, and most recently the severe rainstorms that caused widespread flooding across the region this summer. Events such as these often cause significant damage, resulting in loss of hydro, flooding, and damage to the town's infrastructure and personal property. In an effort to better serve our residents, the town has taken steps to build community resilience in the face of a changing climate. Based on a review of best practices, administration has created a dedicated webpage to disseminate vital information during times of emergency, ensuring the safety and well-being of our community. The purpose of this webpage is to serve as a centralized hub for residents to access timely and accurate information during such critical moments. In addition, the page also includes local and relevant information on what action should be taken during an emergency event, such as what to do during a prolonged power outage and how to stay safe during a tornado, among other critical topics. The content is designed to be informative, actionable, and easy to understand, empowering residents to take proactive measures to protect themselves and their families. In addition to providing valuable resources, the webpage will feature real-time emergency notification. Residents can stay updated on the latest developments and receive immediate instructions on what steps to take to ensure their safety. The emergency website is intended to supplement the town's emergency communication strategy, which includes the Essex Alerts notification system, social media messaging, and media engagement. We encourage all residents to visit essex.ca/emergency and bookmark the page to stay informed and actively participate in creating a safer and more prepared community. So we'd like to take a minute just to show you a real-time demo of the page. All right, so at the top of the page, there's a section for emergency notifications. So if we just scroll down slightly, you can see there's currently no emergency notifications, which is great. In a critical event, this is where we would house any real-time updates in the situation and any calls to action to residents, such as to stay indoors, reduce water usage. Again, all of this messaging would be pushed through emergency alert channels as well as social media. But this is more of a centralized hub where residents can go and see a real-time timeline of all of the messaging that's going out from the town. Below that, you'll see some quick links. So we have a link to report a problem where residents can report a problem online, instructions on how to prepare a 72-hour emergency kit, contact information for our local utility providers, and also a link to sign up for Essex Alerts. Below that, where those icons are housed, these are essentially local and relevant situations that may impact our community. So each of these categories contains key messaging on what to do, how to stay safe, and links to any relevant resources. So if we click on floods, for example, yeah, you can see that it brings up relevant information on this category, including how to protect yourself, how to protect your home, types of flood alerts, safety information, which links to our local utility providers, and also how to stay informed in case of a flood event. And then if we just go back to the original page there, finally, you'll find at the bottom a resources section, which just includes links to local and provincial resources that may assist in time of emergency. So we'll begin promoting the new emergency planning webpage to residents to create awareness. And at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mark, that was exciting. That's one of the things that came out of our debriefing and stuff. So I'm glad you were able to get that done in such a short period of time. Is it live yet? Okay, awesome. Questions from members of council? Comments? I think we all just like it. Councillor Mady?
That spot there where you said the live updates would be, during the flood of the 23rd, 24th, and we had to release some partially treated sanitary water into the lake. Would that show up in there?
So those alerts would basically be anything that, the town administration decides to put out during the event. So typically how that works is we work with our senior leadership team, our CAO, to assess that messaging, and then that's funneled through me, and then would be pushed through this channel. So depending on the event, it can vary pretty broadly in terms of what type of content is shared. But essentially it's any calls to action, safety messaging, anything to that effect is what we would be looking to get out in the initial stages of the event.
That's a good one. I think that should be one of the ones on our list. Hopefully we never have to do it again. Councillor McGuire-Blaise?
Thank you through the chair. So when it's updated with the new notification, Talbot is flooded, do not use, is closed. Does that send a push notification to cell phones as well? Is that what you're saying? So on top of the website, it then does a push notification to cell phones?
Push notifications to cell phones is a totally separate system, so we can kind of control what is posted here and what is sent out to our emergency alert notifications separately. So in most cases, the most high-level emergency notification would go out to cell phones through that system, and more granular type content, which is not necessarily, high-level alerts type messaging would be posted to the website here. So it may involve more, cleanup efforts or something to that effect.
It's not necessarily directed to you, but just a comment in general. I think that this is really wonderful, really informative. I think it'll be great. I think in a time of an emergency, this is not going to be so great. I'm not sure about any of you, but during an emergency, I cannot access the internet. So why I was asking if it sends a push notification is because I do get a push notification. So if a road is closed or the power is out for a certain period of time, the only way that me or anybody that I know got information is a push notification. Accessing this during an emergency is next to impossible unless we fix the cell towers. And I don't think that's happening anytime soon. So I'd like to see maybe not so much just the high level stuff happening, like a tornado coming, we get a push notification. I think that some of the smaller things can be sent through push notifications when Wi-Fi is down or cellular service is down. Just so that way our residents are more aware and they don't go down the flooded road or whatever it might be. Just a suggestion, maybe we take a look at that for the future, what actually gets sent that way. But this is great unless it's in the the thick of it. Good job.
Councillor Allard?
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, and to Councillor McGuire-Blaise. You're correct, and we realize that. So we do have Essex Alerts, and until the last 2 years, Essex Alerts was never used. So we're really promoting that. And I know Mr. Tortola, at least 4 times a year, continues to put reminders out for residents to sign up for it, because what you're going at, that's where they need to be signed up to, Essex Alerts. If they're signed up for that, they're going to get those push messages, and we'll do other messages because we are using that now. But the key is they sign up for Essex Alerts.
So Mark, if somebody's watching and they need to sign up for Essex Alerts, what do they do?
Essex.ca/alerts and sign up for emergency alert notification system. We do test that system as well throughout the year. And we encourage, as CAO Sweet had mentioned, every resident to sign up for that. That's kind of our first defense to get messaging out to our residents during an emergency.
Looking for a mover and a seconder that the verbal presentation be received. Councillor McGuire Blaze, Councillor Mady, any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. 10.2, request for additional funds for heat exchangers. Looking for a mover and a seconder that council approve the additional funding of $1,139 above the approved capital budget of $64,000 to be funded through the operating repair maintenance budget for the Essex Recreational Complex. This is just formality because it's a project that came in a little bit over budget. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Verbeek, Deputy Mayor Shepley. All in favor? And that is carried. 10.3, Alcohol Risk Management Policy 2023 with updated review of amendments. I'm going to get a mover and a seconder and then we can speak to it. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the Recreation and Culture Report be received and that the updates and amendments to the Alcohol Risk Management Policy attached be approved. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Hammond. Ms. Cynthia Cakebread, did you want to go over the highs and lows?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is our third kick at this can, and we've taken the feedback from the last 2 meetings that we were able to intertwine into it and clarify with our clerk and just make the addition about any request for consideration outside of the policy would be fine to go for an exemption request through our CERT committee, whereby then recommendations could be taken from there to give to council on how to proceed.
Members of council. Councillor Guerin. Oh, sorry, Director Morissette and then Councillor Guerin.
Thank you, Mayor Bonnie. So one thing I just want to point out is the CERT committee they do meet regularly, but it is important that if somebody is looking for an exemption, that it's given to us well in advance of the event, because if we don't have a meeting in the meantime, it's very hard to collaborate and get everybody there. So early planning is extremely important if alcohol exemptions are to come forward. And then CERT committee would review it and then come back to council with the policy recommendation.
So the exemptions are broad, then they're for any size event in any one of our municipally owned venues or properties.
Through you, Your Worship, I can speak. Well, or Jake, if you want to, but I think what we discussed was it's no different from exemptions for any of the other bylaws. If you were doing a noise bylaw exemption, if you were doing anything like that, it would follow the process, but going through our CERT committee first.
That's correct. It would be synonymous with some of the other policies and bylaws that we would look after as well. We did evaluate, and the total number of alcohol related events in a year is probably close to 20. So it's not like we're looking at a significant amount. However, if we did get to that stage where we did feel like it was becoming an issue, we would come back to council with an amended policy and advise how that's working.
All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Request for extension of draft approval for phase 2 of the Parkland Woods residential subdivision. This is just to extend it. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the approval of the extension of the draft plan subdivision approval for lands comprising of Part 1 unregistered plan, County of Essex, for a period of 3 years from the date of draft plan approval and copy of the resolution be approved and forward to the manager of planning services, the County of Essex. Moved by Deputy Mayor, supported by Councilor McGuire Blaze. Any questions? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Legal and Legislative Services, municipal request for access to information and fees policy. I'll get a mover and seconder. If there's any questions, we can go through them. That Legal and Legislative Services be received and that request for access to information and fees policy be adopted as of December 18th, and that bylaw 2231 being a bylaw to repeal bylaw 768 to be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on December 18th. Needing a mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Verbeek, Councilor Allard, and any questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Just wondering if maybe the clerk or somebody could give us some idea on what a typical request would cost, like what we would be looking at. Like, I know it would vary greatly from one to the other, but is there an average cost that we'd be looking at if somebody were to put in a request? Just so we can get an idea on because I see there's fees for the hours and by the quarter, by 15 minutes I see. Just wondering, like, I want to make sure I don't see the fees as being extremely exorbitant or anything like that. I just want to make sure that if we're putting forward something that we don't limit the availability, the ability to get the freedom of information. So I think it's a fine line between limiting that and also covering our expenses at the same time.
Mayor Bondi, those are good questions. I can talk about privacy legislation all night if you guys want to sit and listen. As a municipality, we're subject to MFIPA. MFIPA prescribes costs, fees for certain things. And one of the things that MFIPA allows is for us to charge back reasonable fees related with the search. A search that is asking for limited information, for example, 1 or 2 documents, records that aren't very large, will come in under $100. Searches that are looking for multiple records on multiple homes spanning multiple years can come in anywhere between $200 and $500, depending on how much time we allocate to the search and how much our fees are in providing the information. All of those fees are challengeable first to the clerk. And then after the clerk, they're challengeable to the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario. So if anybody has an issue with the cost of the search, they can actually go to the Information and Privacy Commissioner, who's an independent body of the Ontario government, and they can provide a decision as to whether or not those fees are reasonable. So there are processes in place that allow for the reasonability of fees to be judged.
Questions from members of council? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Economic Development 10.6, Building Report and Development Overview. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the Economic Development Report be received for information. Councilor Mady, Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor? That is carried. Development went down this year. Woo. Operations, Jackson Street Community Safety Zone. Needing a mover and a seconder that council direct administration to implement a community safety zone on Jackson Street from County Road 50 heading south to Sullivan Street and amend bylaw 915 to reflect such. Moved by Councilor Mady, seconded by Councilor Allard. And Director Gerard, did you want to speak to this? Okay.
I'll just go ahead anyways, through the chair. So back in the summer, as a result of the potential parking changes for Jackson Street, it was also identified that that Jackson Street may also be a candidate for community safety zone. At that time, council made a resolution to have us take a look at it. So in accordance with section 4.3.2 of the community safety zone policy, Jackson Street being directly adjacent to a park does make it an eligible candidate for a community safety zone. So we are making the recommendation that that be implemented and that we revise bylaw 915 to include that street as a community safety zone.
Thank you for that. Any comments, questions from council? Counselor Maybe.
Um, I think this is a great idea. I still think this is a great idea. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it affects our parking problem down there as we continue forward. Hopefully slowing people down there is going to definitely help with the speeding complaints and making things safer for our residents that are using our beach. As part of the safety zone, I was looking to see that you have signage that's going to be up, lowered, reduced speed limit. And is there any provisions for a crosswalk at the end near Sullivan there to help direct pedestrian traffic? Any?
The short answer is no. The community safety zone, what it is it's a tool within a municipality's toolbox to use to designate a road as needing additional safety or a road that can be designated as a community safety zone to essentially double the fines for any type of traffic related enforcement. So it doesn't come with any speed reduction or any type of community improvement that would need to be approved by council with any additional funds and consideration for those other requests. So if council wanted to look at changing the speed limit, for instance, as an example, we do have a speed limit policy, so we would have to follow that policy to look at reducing the speed limit. And for any improvements to pedestrian safety or pedestrian crosswalks, we would need a motion from council on that as well, which could come at a cost.
All in favor? And that is carried. Opposed? My God. Information technology, IT strategic plan results, implementation update. I will get a mover and a seconder, and then we will have our manager of IT present to us. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Guerin, Councillor Mady, and Mr. Jack Barron. Floor is yours.
Through your worship, just would like to touch base a little bit on this report. Since the IT strat plan came out, we've been in 2022, we've been working we've been working diligently to implement a lot of the strategies in the report. So we've used the report as a guideline on technologies that we can implement and ways we can improve service to the municipality. Since the report came out, the Perry Group developed a portal, which is basically like a report card. If you look at the graphics on the report, and that's shows where we are now. So the images, I guess the graph is the easiest way to see it. It's where we started and where we are. And we're using the recommendations from that report on new technology to implement and ways to improve services, like I said. So we keep striving to improve. Obviously, security is a big one. We're looking at the different technologies that were the recommendations in the report. So we're following that, using all the recommendations to move forward.
You are manager. Thank you, Jack. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Parks and facilities, surplus parkland adjacent to Bridlewood Park in Essex Center, needing a mover and a seconder, that the report be received and that council approve administration going forward with initiating the process to declare the land surplus and take the necessary steps to sell the declared surplus land as indicated per the lot plan in Appendix B, and that council approve that the funds received from the sale of the lands, less any preparation costs, be placed in the parkland reserve amount, needing a mover and a seconder on this one. Councillor Guerin and Deputy Mayor Shepley. Questions to this one? It's pretty straightforward. Director, okay, we'll go to Director Morissette and then we'll go to Councillor McGuire-Blaise.
Thank you, Mayor Bonnie. So this file has been open for a number of years. So I just want to give a little bit of a high level overview to this council. So anytime we have a new development within the municipality, we have a parkland dedication bylaw. So 5% of the land area would be asked if we want to have the parkland, or we would take cash in lieu. So in this circumstance, parkland was taken, which was basically abutting right up against Bridlewood Park. So in 2015, the Parks and Rec Master Plan identified that Bridlewood Park had sufficient amenities. So this, any further features for this park, if things were added, would be added to the existing footprint, and this space wouldn't be needed. So in 2018, council directed administration to declare the property as surplus and provided authorization to obtain pricing for the sale of the land, with any proceeds being put back into the Parkland Reserve for Ward 1 enhancements. So since that time, administration worked with land surveyors to draft a reference of plan for proposed lots. So it was basically divided into 4 parcels, 3 of which can be sold. So in 2021, the area was receiving servicing enhancements. So the town ensured that these lots were prepared for sale with those servicing, with those services put into place. So administration came back to council in July 2022 to proceed with the declaration of surplus lands. However, with the pending election, council deferred the decision. Since then, administration conducted a community services master plan to identify if the property should be reconsidered as surplus. The master plan still identifies that this would be fit the qualifications for surplus lands. So it's coming back to council now to reinitiate the process. So because it has been a number of years since the process was started, we're looking to start the process again. And with full transparency, there was one person at the last meeting that said that they were opposed to it. So they did come to council as a delegate, and that person was notified that this was coming back tonight. However, they're not in attendance. So this process will allow us to put the resources into actually getting the plan in place to declare it surplus. So we're looking for council direction to proceed with the declaration, to initiate the process. And then this report will come back to council to finalize once that time is ready.
Thank you through the chair. So only 3 parcels of the 4 we're seeing here will be available for development, is what you said. Which one is not going to be developed?
So I believe it's part 1 that is not, which would be where the current entrance is to the park right now. So it still provides for us to be able to have an entrance to the park with the walkway and access throughout the park.
Thank you through the chair. This area that you're looking at floods incredibly. Is what will happen to the rest of the park once this is developed? And I know that all these rear neighbors here already flood. So now you're gonna build here and all that water is gonna flood these neighbors and then flood the park. Is there a plan?
Through you, Mayor Bondi. So anytime that there's new development put on a property, they're required to Code Act, make sure that their water is not going to dredge or go onto other adjacent properties. So they would have to have their own stormwater management for each parcel of land to make sure that they're not pushing that extra water off.
Through the chair, I'm not in favor of sectioning off the lands and then putting it into a reserve so we can. I would like to see if we're going to section off these property, or if we're going to sell these properties, it goes into a reserve to buy more parkland. And I would like to see it buy more parkland in Essex, like close to Ward 1. I also lived right around the corner from there. I don't currently, but I do know that that park floods a lot, and this really concerns me, and I know it would concern every neighbor around there. I'm sure that is what the other delegate was concerned about as well. So I won't support it.
I just want to provide a touch more history on the funding and where it would be redeposited back into. So when the town applied for the Canada Community Revitalization Fund grant for the Essex Sports Fields, it required a $250,000 contribution in addition to what the province was going to provide as a grant. So what happened was, at the time, the intent was, it was brought at the same time as this declaration of surplus. The intent was that any proceeds from those 3 lots would be used for that contribution. So I just want council to be aware of that because currently the monies have been funded from Parkland Reserve, putting it into a deficit with the intent that the proceeds from this, because we were given approval in the prior council to declare it surplus, would be used to repay that contribution. Just as history.
And just to follow up on that, properties in the area are selling for almost 400,000 a property. So one of these properties should pay that back. You're going to then have another $800,000. Let's say 600,000. Let's say you only sell them for 300,000. You're going to have $600,000 put into reserves, which will go where? Like it's.
You, Mayor Bonnie, so the intent would be to use it for further development for the Essex sports fields because we're having, we don't have money to be able to continue to develop that area. So this was one of the strategies that was come up to be able to reutilize that funding towards that project.
Mayor, 2 questions. One for, I guess, Kate. Do you recall how much it costs us in the servicing those properties? Because that's going to come off, that's going to be an effect on the bottom line here.
Through the chair, it came in at approximately $15,000 for the servicing of the 3 lots. I don't know if Director Gerard wants to expand on that at all.
And second question, I guess, is to Councilor McGuire-Blaise. So you mentioned that you'd like to see the money put into town purchasing more parks. I'm assuming you mean like playground areas and that. To administration, any parks that we inherit in our town is usually from new developments and subdivisions, correct?
Through your Mayor Body, that's correct. Most of the time that is the case, unless there's a specific reason that we find that we would need parkland or something else. But further to that, with the new Essex Town Center subdivision, we do have parkland that's going to be brought online in the next year or so. It's on maintenance until I believe it's November 2024. And then we would be looking at having that inherited towards the town. So potentially the 2025 budget, we could see some sort of development charges that would be used towards developing that as an actual park space.
Just a comment on, and then the master plan identified that we had sufficient amount of playgrounds in Essex Center, correct?
Through your Mayor Body. So it said that we would be one deficit, which that gap in Essex Town Center that we're going to receive would fulfill that deficit.
Our youth council member Pine.
Clarification. So are we referring to the hill part being sold off with the backing onto Eiler or?
Through your Mayor Bonnie. So it would be the section that's adjacent to Bryan Avenue at the basically where it would cut off. So you'd see a large rectangular space as Brettlewood Park that would still remain, but the section closest to Bryan would be parceled off. And there'd be a small triangular area that we would maintain as a pathway to connect the park.
I don't know if this is such a good idea. I mean, we're at a point where in Essex Center, we're starting to get very condensed and we're running out of green space. So to lose even more doesn't seem like it's really worth it, especially when that's going to limit our access should we need anything from that one side. I don't really know how well it's going to work out in the long run. And to build a bunch of houses, there is already a lot of flooding, so that will just further flood the park. And it's very utilized space. Right there, there's normally a lot of trees currently, so to get rid of them, I'm not sure if that would be a good idea.
Any trees there?
No, that is vacant land space right now.
Councillor Guerin, and then if there's any council members that haven't spoke.
Thanks. To the mayor, to Director Gerard, maybe, can you speak to, I know there is low-lying areas there, been behind the hill in particular. Can you speak directly to why the water sits there like it does? And can you reassure council that when these homes are sold, these properties are sold, that the builders, how they're going to be able to keep their water on their property? I don't believe the houses on Hanlon, because of their age, have any rear yard drains at all. Is that contributing to some of the flooding?
Through the chair. So first of all, to address the first question, which was that the park floods. This is not an unusual practice in engineering to utilize park space to flood. Typically in a rain event or a flooding event, they're not utilized spaces. You know, the kids and adults aren't visiting their park in a 100-year storm event. So our stormwater management guidelines do allow for flooding in parks of up to a foot of rainwater. With that being said, any development can impact how stormwater is managed. Director Morrisseau did mention that each individual lot is responsible to maintain its own stormwater. That is true. So through the process of building permit, they would be required to install rear yard drains and collect their own water and shed it into the newly created storm sewer on Bryant. The only impact that I can see is very similar to any type of development that we see in Essex. So very similar to any subdivision that happens is typically what happens is those people that are abut or are adjacent to those lands who have always and historically shed water off of their property and haven't managed to collect and control their own water may be cut off with stormwater. I don't know if that's the case in this particular situation, but that is a possibility. However, it shouldn't be the driving factor for making a decision here, as stormwater should be managed by those properties. As we know, we shouldn't be shedding water to our neighbors. So that is something that if council decided that they wanted to surplus these lands, we could do the same practice that we do with subdivisions, where we send a letter to those properties that may be impacted by development and work with them to come up with a solution to address their stormwater issues.
Deputy Mayor Shepley and Councillor Hammond. So we'll go Deputy Mayor Shepley, then Councillor Hammond, and then we'll go to the gallery here again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I'm just wondering if Director Morissette could maybe answer one question for Part A. And I'm just wondering, this is known to most of the Ward 1 residents as Big Hill Park. Is there any needs in Big Hill Park currently that we could address with some of the funds from the sale of these lots, that if there's any needs we could address there first, and then any balance of that, obviously I would hope to see would go to the sporting complex on the other side of Number 3 Highway.
Through you, Mayor Bondi. So we don't have any specific needs that are on the high end of priorities at this point. We are still going through, we just passed the community services master plan, I think last meeting or 2 meetings ago. So we're still going through a lot of those things to determine what specific amenities we would want to have at every park so that we do have some sort of standard. So that is not set at this point yet. So, but that is one of the parks that does have more amenities than a lot of the other parks. So it is in a pretty good spot for amenities. I think that answers your question. No.
Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Mayor, and it's through you. Yeah, just remind me, we've just allotted some stormwater management money to Bryant Street, have we not? That's adjacent to this? And will it potentially help with the stormwater in this park area?
Chair, so yes, that's correct. We improved the storm sewers in this area. The Ward 1 storm improvements project, which wrapped up last year. So it improved these storm sewers from like basically on Bryan Avenue from close to Kimball all the way to South Talbot Road. So that entire stretch has been improved. As was mentioned, we did service these lots through that project because there was an opportunity through some economies of scale to service these lots. So typically lot servicing can range between $15,000 and $50,000 depending on the situation. we were able to achieve servicing all of the lots for around $15,000 plus tax. So it was very cost effective to do so. When we designed the storm sewer, we did ensure that these lands were incorporated into the design as well. So when they were serviced, we made sure that there was capacity with new storm sewers to take on additional stormwater flow from these lots.
Counselor Hammond?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Again, through you. So the one other thing you said there, Mr. Gerard, was that we do utilize parkland for stormwater management. That being said, if we've done that to these properties already, is it prudent to be putting houses on top of water that is being utilized for stormwater management?
So looking at our internal mapping, which shows kind of a generalized idea of where water sheds. Right now, the drainage situation is that where these lots are already a high point, and the water sheds towards, let's call it the Big Hill section of the park. So currently the water is already shedding towards what would be retained as a park.
Gerard, I'd like your suggestion of sending out letters to neighboring parties to see if we can get ahead of any drainage issues if we go ahead. I think as a council, we were looking at ways to get extra funds for other projects and looking at surplus lands. And we paused on this because of the election and because we were waiting for our Parks and Rec master plan. But right now, those lots are not really actively used. And they could bring in extra people in a housing crisis, and they could bring in extra tax revenue and money for our rec center or rec lands across the Highway 3 that we desperately need to get started on. So at this point, I'll be supporting the motion, and this is just one step. I think we're going to have to do more steps. So, okay, everybody spoke to it, I think, that wanted to. All in favor of the motion? And opposed. You want that noted? Yeah. Okay, have that noted. Thank you. Reports from our youth members. All right, go ahead. Youth member Pine.
Madam Mayor, so over the past couple months, myself and Lauren were able to serve on the Stroll by Santa committee for McGregor. So then we also volunteered day of December 8th from 5:30 to 7:30. So while we were there, we were allowing families to come play some fun festive games, see Santa, write some letters, decorate crafts and ornaments. They got a free meal. There was even the mayor there doing coloring books. So it was a great event, and we would really like to thank Councillor Verbeek for all of her hard work that she put into it and inviting us to be able to help her out on there.
On Saturday, December 9th, the Santa's Village Committee hosted the second Canada's Most Southern Santa's Village. It once again proved to be an amazing night. I would like to thank everyone who helped volunteer and plan because I can only imagine how much work that went into executing such an amazing event. On behalf of Colin and I, we would like to wish everyone a happy holidays. Thank you.
Quick little county council update here today. So our safety audit letter that Councillor Verbeek sent to the county got adopted, and we have been confirmed that the county is looking at both county intersections 15 and 18 and 15 and 12. We also adopted a motion on an affordable housing strategy that we're working with the City of Windsor. So that will take place in 2024. The Essex Library budget is being presented in January to County Council, and that will add one full-time staff member to the Harrow branch. So we will see Harrow branch restored to better staffing levels. We also adopted the State of Good road repair, which shows that County Road 50, the paved trail, all the way to the Meadows Road, which is what, 41? 41 will be done this year, not in 2 sections, but 1. So really happy about that. Spread the word about that. They're also doing their early release contract work. And that's what we're going to work with them for a few of our roads. So they got pre-approval for that. We did also review our procedure bylaw, and we tabled it till we have further discussion. primarily on the review of county council remuneration because there has not been any market study done ever. And their study was done in 2007 by lay people that interviewed county councilors, and it was never a market study. So that is being done, and that the other report is on our county council agenda for tomorrow. We also gave approval for $200,000 to IRCA for a coastal resilience plan that is going to look at storm species development, invasive species, and everything else along our shoreline. Lake St. Clair is 44 kilometers. They're going to look at Lake St. Clair, and Lake Erie is 88 kilometers. So lots going on at the county, and the county is looking to do their budget in January. Right now, the proposed increase is looking to be 6%, but I'm sure we can get that down a little bit. And yeah, county council meets for the last time this year, Wednesday night. And Councilor Verbeek is coming. Woo! As her debut. She's getting sworn in. So if you want to come watch, it'll be good fun. Okay, correspondence. That all the correspondence listed in agenda item 13 be received or indicated to share such with the community. And so this is our deputy clerk did say that this is something worthy of receiving and supporting because it impacts our bottom line. So if council just wants to receive, let me know. Or if you want to receive and support, let me know. Councilor Mady. Okay, need a seconder. Councilor Verbeek, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. And that is carried. We'll go to Director Malandrucolo for the Windsor Essex County Crime Stoppers Incorporated, and then we'll get a motion.
Mayor Bondi, through you. That correspondence from Windsor and Essex County Crime Stoppers, Inc., asking council to consider proclaiming Crime Stoppers Month in the town of Essex be received or received and supported, and if supported, that council proclaim the month of January as Crime Stoppers Month in the town of Essex by adopting the following resolution. Whereas Crime Stoppers Month promotes awareness through education, campaigns, and events across Windsor and Essex County, and whereas this year's theme for Crime Stoppers Month is Be a Crime Stopper, Keep Your Community Safe, and whereas the foundation of Crime Stoppers is the partnership between the community, law enforcement, partnering agencies, and the media, and whereas Crime Stoppers encourages everyone to be a crime stopper, keep your community safe, to assist law enforcement, solve crime, and increase awareness and understanding of the Crime Stoppers program, whereby promoting the usage of the 24-hour reporting service to reduce and solve crime, and whereas Windsor and Essex County Crime Stoppers, Inc. actively works with members of the community, the media, and the police as a community safety service partner.
And a seconder for that, Councillor Allard, Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor, and that is carried. Therefore, I, Sherry Bondi, Mayor of the Town of Essex, do hereby proclaim January 2024 as Crime Stoppers Month to support Windsor and Essex County Crime Stoppers in promoting public awareness on their service within the community. Committee meeting minutes. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the committee meeting minutes listed in agenda item 14 be received and approved and adopted as circulated. We have the Police Service Board, the Committee of Adjustment, and the Santa's Village Committee. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Hammond. Any questions? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Nothing under financial, nothing was brought to us for new business. We do have two notices of motion that were brought to the clerk's attention, and our clerk director, Malandrucolo, will read them.
Bondi, through you. The first notice of motion was moved by Councillor Allard to be considered at the January 5th, 2024 regular council meeting. That council direct administration to prepare a report and provide a recommendation on installing deer crossing signs at the wooded area on the third concession near the Arner town line. The second notice of motion moved by Councillor Mady and to be considered at the January 15, 2024 regular council meeting, that administration provide a report on the process for when a fence is requested to be constructed adjacent to a town-owned property, and the report should break down costs and who would be responsible for the costs.
Bylaw 2290, being a bylaw that 2290 be read a third and final time on December 18th, 2023, needing a mover and a seconder. Moved by Counselor Mady, supported by Counselor McGuire Blaze. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Bylaw 2291, being a bylaw to establish water and wastewater rates. It be read a third and finally passed on December 18th. Counselor Verbeek, Counselor Guerin, any questions? All in favor? Oh yeah, it's a little delayed. Bylaw 2237, that bylaw 2237 be read a third and finally passed on December 18th. And this is a bylaw to establish and delegate certain powers to the Town of Essex Appeals Committee. Needing a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Counselor Mady, all in favor? And that is carried. Bylaws that require a first, second, third, and final reading. Being a bylaw to appoint a fire chief for the Town of Essex. That bylaw 2292 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed on December 18th. I realize our organization charts now are already out of date that we got. I know. Mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Counselor Verbeek, all in favor. And that is carried. Bylaws requiring a first and second reading. Bylaw 2293 be read a first, second, and provisionally adopted on December 18th. This is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of tonight's regular council meeting. Mover and a seconder. Counselor Allard, Counselor Hammond, any questions? All in favor. Needing a bylaw to adjourn. Counselor Guerin. Oops. Oh, sorry. Oh, I missed announcements. I'm so sorry, Council. Okay, we'll start with Deputy Mayor Shepley, then Counselor Hammond, then go around the room.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And it's been a pleasure working with you all for the last year. And I'm glad you remembered before we left. Have a great Christmas and New Year, everybody.
Counselor Hammond.
Yes, I'd like to exemplify Deputy Mayor Shepley's holiday wishes. Hope everybody enjoys their holidays and be safe during New Year's. Looking forward to seeing everybody in 2024.
We'll go around the room. We'll start with Counselor McGuire Blaze and we'll go this way today.
Thank you through the chair. I just wanted to thank everybody who came out to support the Santa's Village. It was super successful. And then I wanted to thank everybody who came out and supported the businesses for their Midnight Madness sale. I spoke with a couple businesses after both events, and they were delighted at the response that they received. And they said after a very long summer, those two events really did put a little joy in their holiday. So I want to encourage everybody who is listening. There's still a week left before Christmas. If you have any last minute shopping to do, please go out and support our local businesses as best as you can. There's a lot of cool things out there. So thank you everyone who's supporting our businesses, and thank you everyone who supported both events.
To the mayor, just want to wish everybody from my family to yours, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Be safe and see you in 2024.
Christmas greetings. Merry Christmas. I wish you all health and happiness in 2024. To our 3 or 4 viewers and all of administration and my colleagues here. And don't drink and drive.
I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It's been a great year. And even years are always better. So if this was a good year, next year is going to be a great year.
Through the mayor, yeah, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. On behalf of all the town staff, we want to wish council and all our residents happy holidays and Merry Christmas, and stay safe.
Administration and council for a good 2023. Needing a mover and a seconder for adjournment. Did I already almost? Counselor Mady, Counselor Guerin. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, everyone. See you in January.